Good morning, wonderful students. Miss Collin here. Today we're going to go over unit activity number 3, which is how do we communicate with others? Remember, we're dealing with poetry, figurative language, tone, theme, etc. So the objectives for the project are that you will analyze the meaning of a poem and you will create a visual representation of a poem. Let's read the introduction. You will draw on what you have learned about the different elements of poetry in this unit. You will research a poem that expresses an emotion, analyze it, and create a visual representation for the poem. In order to get full points for this project, you will have to get 4 points in task 1 and 4 points in task 2, which is art and poetry. So the first part of the poem, you're going to find it, you're going to describe, find some imagery, and let's see what you need to get the full 4 points. The student needs to clearly acknowledge the name and author of the poem. The student needs to include very detailed descriptions of 3 images from the poem, and you need to construct a very detailed summary with highly relevant descriptions of the poem's theme or meaning. You do this and you will get 4 points for it. Task 2, which is art and poetry, the second part of your project where you're going to create some artwork based on the poem that you chose. In order to get 4 points for it, which is full credit for the second part, you're going to provide a thoughtful and clear explanation of your chosen artwork. You're going to create a very creative and careful visual representation of an emotion in the poem. Then you're going to include, once again, it's very important, the name and author of your poem. You have to give them credit. You have to cite your work. So name and author of the poem. And then finally, you're going to create a summary that thoroughly describes the connection between the image in the artwork and the poem. All right, so let's go over task 1, emotion in poetry. For this part, you're going to recall the basic elements of the poem that we have already gone through for the past 2 weeks. It's rhyme scheme, rhythm and meter, tone, and figurative language. Okay, and once you have gone over these 4 things that we already did, you can access your notes if you completed the writing assignments. Let's take a look at part A. Part A said, select a poem that expresses emotions. Which poem did you select? Who authored the poem? So first of all, you're going to click this link right here. You're going to go over to poets.org and you're going to select a poem. Just scroll down. These are the titles. These are the authors. Let's see, which one do I want to go for? So I'm going to focus on the one that we looked at in class last Monday, Nothing Gold Can Stay. You cannot, and this is very important, you cannot use the poem that I picked out. You have to choose one from the list, not the one that I chose. So I'm going to go back to the project and I'm going to say, what poem did I select? It is called Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. Remember to include the title of your poem and the author. In part B, engage in a 10-minute free writing exercise. Brainstorm and write about anything that comes to mind when thinking about the emotion the writer is trying to express. Consider these prompts while performing this exercise. So you're going to read your poem that you chose, and you can base your free writing on these prompts. This helps give you an idea of what you have to write. What kinds of descriptions does the writer use in the poem? Does the poem feel happy, mad, sad? So if you remember from the poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay, Hurley leaves a flower, but only so an hour. So I know it's kind of a sad poem. So I'm going to do a free writing. The poem feels a little sad because it talks about getting old. And then I can write some type of images are, let's see, what does it talk about? It talks about nature, talks about green and gold. And gold. it talks about nature and refers to it as her. So I can see an example of figurative language. Includes figurative language. What type of figurative language? It says that it is personification. Why? Because the author refers to nature as her and gives her human qualities. Okay? And then you just keep going. You have to take 10 minutes of your time, answer these questions. If you have anything else besides these questions that you want to include, go ahead and include it. Just give us details about your poem. And now for part C, the instructions read, recall that imagery is a literary device that poets use to describe ideas and objects in a way that appeals to the reader's senses. List 3 specific images from the poem that express emotion. Support each image with a detail from the poem. These details can be in the form of direct quotes or summaries. So once again, you go back, you take a look at the poem, and you try to find a few images. So right here I can see her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. So we can do a quote, right? So I'm going to write it over here. The author says, her early leaf a flower, but only so an hour. You have to do this 3 times. Support each image with a detail from the poem. These details can be in form. So I'm going to write right here. The author means to say that nature's first leaf looks beautiful, but it only lasts a little bit because everybody gets old, including nature. And remember, this poem is talking a lot about his own life because he's getting older and he's kind of realizing it. So the author means to say that nature's first leaf looks beautiful, but it only lasts a small amount of time. Everyone gets old. You have to find 3, just like this. I found this image. You have to go into your poem and list 3 details. We need 3 images in here, 3 specific images from your poem that express emotion. You can do it like I did. You put the direct quotation and then you do a little explanation of why you think that is so. Now for part D, you're going to write a 3 to 5 paragraph summary of what you believe the poem is about. Remember that the summary should include 3 images you have identified. So this is easy. You're going to just go back and look at the 3 images that you chose. Something that can help you is to organize your summary. You can introduce the poem, tell me what the title is, an author, and tell me what it is about. What's the theme? What's the tone? Tell me a little bit about the poem, and then you're going to go in. You already have these 3 from part C. 3 images. Does it have figurative language? Does it have symbols? Does it rhyme? Any detail that you find from your poem, you include it in here. That's kind of like the body of your summary. What did you learn? What's the message? And then a short conclusion. You tie your 3 images together to the tone, the theme. How do they explain your poem? What did you understand? Did you like it or not? Okay, for task 2, which is art and poetry, this is the second part of your project. You're going to create a piece of artwork for your chosen poem. Consider the following creative options while deciding how to represent the poem's edition. You can make a collage. You can make a poster. You can make a multimedia presentation, a drawing or a painting, and even a cartoon strip. That's a comic strip. If you have another idea that's not listed in here, please get in contact with Mrs. Joyce so she can tell you if you can go ahead and work on that. She might say yes, you never know. But even if that's not an option for you, you have a lot of ideas right here. Let's go to part A. Identify the type of artwork you want to use and explain why you want to use it. I'm going to write in, I want to use a drawing to demonstrate the emotion in my poem because it allows me to express what I read a lot better. And then we go to part B. Create your artwork and be sure to include the following elements: a clear emotion present in the poem, at least 3 images described in the poem, and the title and author of the poem. If you make something by hand, you have to take a picture of it and upload it here. If you create a multimedia presentation, a slideshow, a video, include the link. Anything you do, upload it here. We want one document, everything in here. That way it's all together. All your information, your project is one. So whatever you do, just put it in here. And then part C, you're going to write a short 1-paragraph response that describes your piece and explains the connection between the images in your artwork. Paragraph that explains your piece. What did you do and why? I created a drawing because it helps me express my emotions. It allowed me to understand the poem by Robert Frost a lot better. So let's say I drew a tree, and I drew a tree because this is what it means in nature. So whatever explanation you have for your art piece, you're going to write it in here. It has to be 1 paragraph. And that would be all your project. If you have any questions, email Mrs. Joyce and we'll get back to you with however we can help.